part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host and creator of Producing While Asian. I am here to just recap for you where I've been for a few months since season 2. Season 2 was a little shorter, but there's many reasons for that, which I'm here today to tell you about. I hope you've all been well. It's been quite the last year, I would say, for me. Mostly great things, some not so great things, but that's why I'm on here. I just want to let you in on what's been going on, why there's been such a big delay, and kind of cue you in on what's so exciting for season 3. And I really appreciate your patience. If you've hung out with me through the last 2 seasons, and even in this pause, if you've kept checking the Instagram and kept following the Facebook page, you know, that's what means the most, that you as the fans stay and continue to support, because the show wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So let's dive right in. So where I've been, I'm going to start with kind of the personal things first, just because, you know, let's get through that and then we can get through all the really fun professional stuff. So personally speaking, it's been another year of kind of family, personal issues. I won't dive too deep, but I will say that one of my parents has been in and out of the hospital for the last year, and that's been super stressful. I do want to take this moment to say, you know, practice self-care. I do that, or at least I promote that a lot with my own staff. Shout out to my managing director, Izzy Bartolotta, for always reminding me that it's okay to take a break, that it's fine to focus on things that don't have to do with your career, because it's still going to be there when you get back. It's been an up and down journey trying to help my parent stay on top of their health, and, you know, with the kind of ebbs and flows of coming in and out of a health facility, you know, there's more hope every time. I will be very optimistic and say that this isn't a life-threatening health problem per se, but it is something that's been very stressful on me, my extended family, my parent, of course, who's going through it. I appreciate everybody that is in the know of the specific details and has been putting out their prayers and thoughts. And I know that's very right wing of me to say, but really any kind of good juju you send our way is very helpful. And I'm thankful for it, because, you know, you never discount the power of good energy that people can send. So again, thank you so much for everybody that has supported and has been there. And that is everything from phone calls to text messages to feeding me when I forget to eat, you know, things like that. Again, self-care. Take moments to do things for yourself. Nothing is silly when it comes to self-care. For me, self-care is, full disclosure, I am obsessed with airplanes and air travel. And, you know, everybody that knows me can tell you that, but I am into model airplanes. So I'm, you know, building a model airport in my apartment, and it's not as crazy as it sounds. It's on a table in a specific place. For people that know that I'm a Virgo, I'm very like, it must be in this corner because I don't like clutter. But it is a very fun activity for me to, you know, collect these die-cast model airplanes and make this thing. And so I'll post it one day, and, you know, I'll show you when it's completely done. Right now my model is a little incomplete, but I've been too far on the collecting airplanes part than the actually building the model. So, you know, I play some video games sometimes, and really, to top it off in my self-care world, trashy TV. I mean, I know I'm not the only one, so I fully support anybody out there who watches trash TV, especially on Bravo. I'm a huge Real Housewives diehard. I've been in it since Real Housewives of New York back in 2009, I'd say 2008, 2009. You know, I keep up on that. The most recently, my good friends have gotten me into the whole Vanderpump Rules situation that's going on, and man, I have many opinions, but that's a lot for a different episode. And, you know, whoever's out there that runs a Vanderpump Rules podcast, feel free to call me, because I will happily share all of my thoughts. But back to my point, do things that make you feel good, do things that help you get through tough times. Self-care is important, because you just have to hang in there and do what brings you joy, even in moments that don't feel like there's any joy left. And I know that sounds super downer, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. So some updates. My parent is slowly getting better, slowly coming back to themselves. Just keep that positive energy coming. So that's the personal side. In addition to that, I've been renovating where I live. I live in a lovely 2-floor apartment in downtown Pittsburgh. For anybody that's familiar, the Mexican War Streets. Renovating place is a lot. Like, it's a whole lot of work. Just like everybody has been like, see, I told you. It's, I thought this project would take like maybe a couple of months. Like, we are like a year and some change in, and we still have probably 6 months left of work to do. I could be completely wrong about that, but my carpenter will be back in about a week from when I'm recording this, and we'll push forward. So when it's all done, follow the Instagram account at Producing Well Asian. I'll post a couple of updates there. But if you really, really want to follow the journey, and I'll repeat it again later, you can follow me personally. It's at Don Mike Mendoza on Instagram. I'm trying to get on top of that influencer content because I am not a Gen Z. So I am a millennial, luckily not a geriatric millennial, but I do my best. So there is a story highlight on my personal / professional Instagram called 1210. And that has been the process since the beginning. So really moving through the home renovations, it's very exciting. It feels very New York. Thank goodness that things in Pittsburgh are much cheaper than a bigger city like DC or New York. Otherwise, this project would be years long and I would be so broke all the time. But, I'm thankful for that. So home renovations coming along. I'm in my new office, I guess. We'll get there. It's a journey of love, so to speak. And I'm sure anybody that has gone through home renovations completely understands how I feel about kind of like the impatient patience of redeveloping a space to your liking. But it is awesome. I do, it's a family property, so I do plan on being here for an extended amount of time. So yeah, more on that. So all that being said, let's dive into the actual subject matter of this podcast, which is the producer part. This is Producing Well Asian. If you're just joining us, I'm Don Mike Mendoza. I'm your host and creator of this podcast and founder of DMH Mendoza Productions and co-founder of Latido Productions that started in 2012. And I'm just here to remind you that this podcast is here to connect with people who are AAPI identifying. And that was the original goal. But we're slowly moving into a period where, we don't want to corner ourselves. So definitely starting to open up to allies and friends of the AAPI, or rather AANHPI community. Also, a quick reminder on that, for those that aren't familiar, I know a lot of people know AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, but 2 years ago, the Biden administration rewrote the acronym, and now it's AANHPI, so Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. But I did meet a student at American University, my alma mater, who smartly pointed out that acronyms like that are created by the government to categorize people to their liking. And so take that as you will. I completely agree with that. But for me, I identify as Filipino and Filipino American. So truly Filipino and American, because I have gotten my dual citizenship all squared away. So
hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Back to talking about producing. Where have I been in terms of my career and what's been going on with that? All very exciting things. Like the first and foremost, I would like to shout out my staff from Latido Productions. And before I do that, let's clarify. So it's Latido, L-A space T-I space D-O, Latido. For the musically inclined people, that is part of the solfege syllables. So do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. It is not la, ti, da. It is not la, ti, do. That's where you clearly show that you don't know the musical solfege. So I'm not going to come for you for that because like I was really bad at musicianship. I failed the class twice in college. I was in it for 2 years. You're supposed to be in it for one. So again, not judging, but I do want my company's name to be correct in people's mouths. So it is la ti do. It is not do re mi fa so la di da. It is do re mi fa so la ti do. Let's get to it, friends. Spread the word far and wide. That is the name of the company. We've been around for 11 and a half years. So I'm hoping we can continue to get that right. But back to my staff. I have an excellent staff. So many great, determined, motivated, dedicated individuals who support Latido, not just in its founding city of Washington, D.C., but in all 7 places where it exists. And I say 7 because since the last time we really spoke about Latido on this podcast, if at all, we've expanded. I think in season 2, we were in 6 places, and in season 1, we were only in 4. So it's been a kind of exponential growth, which has been fantastic. So for anybody that's wondering, who don't already know, we are in, ready? If I can remember all of these, I feel like a parent who needs to list off their children, and sometimes you forget one, and that's not great either. But we are in Washington, D.C., we're in New York City, we're in Los Angeles, we are in Dallas, Fort Worth, we are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we are in Northern Virginia in Old Town, Alexandria. And this year, 2023, we kicked off a new chapter in Las Vegas. So that is 7 places. We are talking to a couple of more places that may or may not launch in 2024. So keep your fingers crossed, watch all of the social media there. You can see it all, find out all about it at www.latidoproductions.com. So again, LATIDO productions.com. If you go to latidoproductions.com, Lord knows where that will lead you, but that's where we're at. You can follow it on Instagram. You can like it on Facebook, and just go to the website. We do have an old-fashioned newsletter that's coming back. So if you don't like social media or not on it, you can go the old school route and have an email sent to you. And I promise once a month. It's not a spammy type thing. It has a lot of actually really important information to keep on top of. So across those 7 places, I have this incredible staff. Again, I shouted her out earlier, but first of all, Izzy Bartolotta. She started as our associate, which is what we call interns, because I feel like associate brings a little more kind of reputation to it, a little more gravitas, if you will, in 2016 or 2015, 2016. And so she's been with us since then. She's come in and out of the company. She managed and was our creative producer, which is what I call my senior managers in New York City. And she ran that franchise for several years. And then, she has now come into being our managing director after this ever so lovely Anya Randall Neville handled that position for many years. So Izzy, being someone who's been with us for so long, has just above and beyond expectation, has reshaped the company in terms of operational standards and focus and direction and goals and things that I never thought we would talk about because Latido is such a homegrown company. We have fiscal deadlines, we have quarterly meetings, we've got, artist releases and artist contracts and all these things that come with what I like to call a grown-up production company. And it's really a majority of that because of her and her leadership and her dedication. And so if you're looking for somebody who is the real deal to get your life of your company together, Izzy Bartolotta is the one. Follow her at From Where Izzy Sits, because she had a podcast called From Where She Sits. So check that out too. I learned a lot from that podcast, but I'll let you discover that. But shout out to Izzy. And then I have my creative producers, like I said, my senior managers in all 7 cities. Again, like naming children, but we've got Tiffany Lynn Royster in Washington, D.C. We've got Larry Gray in Northern Virginia and Old Town. We've got Laura Nicolas Olaez in New York City. We've got Sarah Powell in Dallas Fort Worth. We have Katie Kimura in Pittsburgh, PA. We've got Lindsay Hopper in Los Angeles, and our newest creative producer, Zephin Hollis in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so all 7 of these individuals work tirelessly to put shows together with me to spread the Latido brand and name to all of these places and just continue our mission of being a leader in not only diversity, equity, and inclusion in the arts, but also representing underrepresented voices. And what I've made clear to a lot of people that I've talked to before, it's not about excluding the privileged minority. It's about bringing equity to the underrepresented majority of, the arts community that is reflective of this country. So we put people in a space together that are from different communities, but with specific attention to bringing up those that don't usually have the opportunity to perform in a cabaret that we put together. We want to make sure that we're pushing forward LGBTQ plus voices, especially trans people of color, specifically trans Black women. Definitely pushing forward women, bringing women up to higher platforms, and especially women of color all across the spectrum. And so again, it is not excluding non-LGBTQ plus, non-POC, non-BIPOC. It is bringing equity so that we can all share in our industry together, but also, giving these communities a platform to speak. There's the idea of having a voice at the table. And that's a big motivation as to how and why I do what I do is, now, which I'll get into later, I'm noticing that there are voices like me. But for a long time, especially if you're a person of color in the arts and entertainment industry, you feel like you are siloed by yourself. And for a long time, it felt like that. I did have and do have my co-founder for Latido, Reggie Cabico. But, you kind of work on an island for a long time until you've somehow tap into the room where all the BIPOC people are, and it's a celebration. But until then, you do feel very alone. So I bring that to the table in terms of I'm creating my own table, F everyone else. And second, at that table, I'm bringing forward voices that deserve to be at that table. And then C, when I go through my career, I try to put myself at the table as much as possible, because while sometimes I may be the only one, I could be tokenized into being the only API person at a table sometimes. At least the voice is there, is what I have to say. Of course, we want as many as possible, but at least one is miles above no one from that community being at the table. And that applies to everyone. So recently I've been quoting this quote, and I know a lot of people laugh about it, but you can only laugh so much, but look at where she is. Kris Jenner, her philosophy is, if you get a no, you're asking the wrong person. And so that has kind of been my unspoken philosophy that I didn't realize till she said that. In terms of my creative producers, all 7 of those people come from all different backgrounds, different communities, LGBTQ plus, women, BIPOC, POC, like all over, age as well. Age diversity counts. Remember that. Not everyone has to be a millennial. People that are from older generations matter a lot because they have, kind of like at a normal day job, institutional knowledge of the world. And then, of course, you want new people as well. And we'll talk about those individuals next. But I'm so thankful to my creative producers, because if it wasn't for them, I cannot operate a production company in 7 places. It's just impossible. I would implode. So shout out to all of those folks who keep us going and keep us running. And then you go to our kind of operational staff. The person who edits this podcast is also somebody who edits and organizes and manages the Latido YouTube channel, and that is Michael Santos Sandoval. If you don't know Michael Santos Sandoval or are not connected to him, you should be, because he is a silent force to be reckoned with, and he is a tech editing extraordinaire. He's our director of video and technology at Latido, and again, like I said, the editor of this podcast, and his skills know no bounds. So, and I truly genuinely mean that. He super supports all the time. He's very on top of his deadlines and what he does. And we wouldn't have a video archive that covers nearly 10 years. I want to say he started with us in 2014, 2015. So that's only 2 years short of how long Latido has been here. And it's because of him that we have a comprehensive Latido channel on YouTube for all of our different cities. So subscribe to that. If you go on there, you'll see some people who are now wildly successful in their careers. We have Tony winners, we have Emmy winners, we have movie stars, TV stars, like people who are big in theater still, or just great in their local communities, and as well as many new and upcoming voices. So, and on top of that, he edits this podcast. So really, truly, thank you, Michael Santos Sandoval, for all you do, because we wouldn't be out there on media platforms like YouTube and here on the Press Play Podcast Network, P3, without you. So thank you so much. And so then I also have to shout out kind of our director of finance, Joshua Daniel Dick. He's and yes, that is his last name, but he's my very best friend from college, former roommate, fellow neighbor here in Pittsburgh now where I'm based. And he's the money man. Like, I'm really bad at math. Let's be real. I'm really bad at math. And Josh is just on top of it all and reminds me of things and makes sure that we're paying our bills and make sure we're within budget, even though most of the time we're not. Sorry, Josh. But really thankful to Josh for doing that and hopping on in the last year, just like Izzy, has been creating systems to make sure we're financially viable. And I'm very thankful for that. Yeah. And then our kind of staff across the board. Latido doesn't happen without music. So we've got our music director, Josh Cleveland in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. Our music associate, Joe Houghton, who's also in Nova, Washington, D.C. We've got Johnny Pearl over in Los Angeles. And then we have James McQuillan down in Dallas, Fort Worth. Those are our solid standbys and music directors for the company. In the other cities, we've got a rotating door of amazing people that come in and out, and there's way too many to mention here, but I do want to say in general, thank you to the people that make the music. Like, it's important. Musical theater isn't musical theater, or music shows, concerts don't happen without musicians playing, or at least creating, a track for you. It all comes from a live place. So those collaborations are so important. And shout outs to our other staff in all of our cities, Chris Harris and John Delaporta, who both pitch in at Latido Los Angeles. Couldn't do it without you. And also to Mark Fitzpatrick, unsung hero. He's Larry Gray's partner in life in Northern Virginia. Super helpful there. Also to Sasha Sinclair of Studio 3440. Sasha Sinclair, she's our brand manager. And what her whole job is that she makes sure that we are branded appropriately across all platforms. So any graphics you see, any logos you see, it is because of Sasha that we're in line with that. So, very, very thankful for her. And then, of course, I was talking about the next generation. So Latido, at DMH Mendoza Productions, in life in general, my philosophy is to really always mentor the next generation, because I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't have Reggie Cabico mentoring me in terms of where I could go and, encouraging me to pursue things, to ask the wrong people to get to know, to keep going. So we've got two incredible young people. And I say young people because I am now in my 30s. So I am I guess I'm not a young person really anymore. I'm getting to middle age, but a lot of people will be like, no, you're so young. But, I'm in my 30s. And so the first person I would like to bring to the forefront is our production associate across all of our cities. And that is Juliana Austin. Juliana came to us as a junior at Carnegie Mellon University here in Pittsburgh for the Latido Pittsburgh franchise. And after her first show with us, she asked how she could get more involved. And so she jumped on and became our associate for just Pittsburgh. And then she went abroad and she came back and she wanted to continue working with us. And we didn't scare her off. And so now she is our production associate across the entire company, pending a new role that we're creating for her. And Juliana's just been fantastic. Juliana has jumped in where she could. Also, she goes by she, they pronouns. So they have really helped us truly. Just anytime something comes up, jumps right in. How can I help? What can I do? And I'm so thankful for that. And Juliana, even from a different city, Juliana is currently based around the New York City area, soon to be in the city proper, and will hopefully support the Latido New York team. And, it proves a lot about motivation, A, and then B, just our company recognition of up and coming talent. We love keeping people who are just amazing and dedicated, and also can understand that things don't always work out the way they're meant to. Planning is, forgive my language, fucking hard. Like, as a producer, you have to plan. And what's that phrase? You plan and God laughs. The whole thing couldn't be more true. You plan your shows, you plan your staff, you plan your talent, and things change, things move, especially in the cabaret space, because it is a little more casual. And Juliana has taken the curves and the punches and the blows and has just moved through it. And I couldn't be more grateful to Juliana. So really happy that they're part of our team. And then my other shout out and last shout out of this whole love fest that I'm putting out right now is to Alana Noble. Alana is my executive assistant. I've never had an EA executive assistant before, and I'm very spoiled. I feel like if Alana left me one day, I would die, because I don't know how to do a lot of things now, because she's just come in and been incredible. And so Alana Noble started as an assistant stage manager for a play that I produced off Broadway that I'll talk about in the kind of update soon. And same thing Juliana did, came to me, asked, where else can I help? How can I stay involved? Became my assistant and has truly blown me away. And, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just ask for what you want. I say that to young people in the country all the time. Ask for what you want. The worst that can come back is a no. And if they say no, like Kris Jenner says, you're talking to the wrong person. So it's worked for me, it's worked for them, and here they are working with us. But Alana, thank you so much for everything you do, from all the way down to scheduling meetings in my calendar when I'm trying to say, hey, schedule 7 cities at once. She does it without batting an eye, even on vacation in the Dominican Republic. Disclaimer, I am not a boss that encourages my employees to work on vacation, but Alana is so wonderful and so generous with her time that she hopped on from a family vacation in the Dominican Republic. But that being said, nobody in my company works for free. Let's talk about that for a second. Nobody in my company works for free. People that are listening, from a producer to whatever your part of the industry may be, don't work for free. Like, don't do it anymore. Like, I know we've all been there. I've worked for free, absolutely. And experience is one thing, obviously. But I feel like I've moved into a place where I have a policy of first try is free, next try is not. I'll work for free for you for one time, and then after that we'll talk about how you can compensate me for my time. And also that not to be taken advantage of, right? So we make sure that we try to pay fairly. We try to make sure we do with what comes in the door. To be really honest, like, Latido is a mom and pop type organization. So we don't have a big ass endowment behind us. We don't have big sponsors that are like throwing money at us. So we do what we can with what comes into the door. But that being said, we are moving into a period where we are starting to pull in potential sponsors for our cities. So on that note, if you are looking to sponsor an arts organization and get your name and brand out there, give us a shout. producingwhileasian@gmail.com. And we'll get to talking about that. But, don't work for free. I know I'm saying that over and over again, but don't do that. Like, there's plenty of ways. And when I say don't work for free, I don't mean demand money all the time. Like, there are ways you can be compensated that are positive for your experience working with an individual or a company. Talk to them, ask them what their budget is, what their capabilities are. I've worked for travel stipend before. I've worked for, if it's a very close friend, like Starbucks, Starbucks gift cards, like something that benefits you in the end, because at the end of the day, we're all still in business. This is a business. That's the part that's scary to a lot of creatives, is talking about the business of show business. And that's so kitschy, and that phrase is so cringy, but it's true. The business of show business. And, you've got to get something out of it too, in addition to your artistic fulfillment. And that's at any level. Talk about it. It is a hard thing to talk about. I will admit, talking about money is gross and it's really yucky sometimes, but my entire job is talking about money as a producer. And I'm being of Asian ethnicity and Filipino ethnic origin. For Filipinos, talking about money is so verboten and so forbidden. It's like, rude almost. Well, actually, it is rude to talk about money as a Filipino, but kind of move past that. So I say that because if you are trying to negotiate your own career, your own opportunities, your own contracts, make sure you're getting something out of it financially, and financially meaning either it's straight compensation or some kind of compensation that benefits your life. Don't work for free. So I'll get off my soapbox about that. And if you've hung in this far, thank you. Again, if you're just joining us, this is Producing While Asian. I'm your host and co-founder of this podcast and the accompanying blog called Producing While Asian. I'm Don Mike Mendoza. You can see all of our stuff at www.producingwhileasian.com, and follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, Producing While Asian. It's a good time.
Hey, this is JD from the Hyman Podcast, a place to have hard conversations revolving around the overall human experience. We tackle topics such as racism, the American justice system, and even headlining news such as the Alex Murdaugh saga. This season, we're going to continue to tackle more hard-hitting topics, and I'm excited to take you on that journey. The Hyman Podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Hyman Podcast is produced in conjunction with the Hyman brand and is part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Now, I talked about it in season 2, also probably season 1, but I incorporated a bigger company called DMH Mendoza Productions. That is now the parent umbrella company for Latido. And so DMH Mendoza, go to www.dmhmproductions.com, Don Michael Hodriel Mendoza Productions, hence the DMHM. So www.dmhmproductions.com. And I did that because I wanted to expand my horizons. Latido is a very specific cabaret concert brand. And so I tried to produce smaller scale musicals and things under that brand at fringe festivals in Washington, D.C., offshoot projects in New York City and Pittsburgh. But at some point, you have to realize that's what it is. Latido is concerts, cabarets, special events, and you have to branch out. So DMHM allows me to reach out and do bigger, better. Well, I don't want to say better, bigger projects beyond our bread and butter, which is the cabaret concerts. So with that, in February, I made my off-Broadway producer debut. It's a play called Hazing You. It's written by the ever gracious, ever amazing, ever talented, and forward-thinking Zachary Harris Martin. Zach and I met when he was part of a reading Latido did in New York for a small musical called Musical Therapy. And I know some people listening to this podcast were in the fringe production of that in DC, and it happened in Chicago before that. But we were doing a reading in New York, hopefully bringing it to off-Broadway, which, hey guys, still open to that conversation. But Hazing You is a play, and it's about exactly what you think it is, fraternity hazing. And it's kind of a cautionary tale. We called it a Greek tragedy. For those that get the pun, welcome to the club. But if you don't get the pun, Greek meaning Greek life, since it is about fraternities. And it is a tragedy. It's not a happy show, but I'll let you discover the plots and what happens in that show if you ever see a production of it. But Hazing You was meant to encourage conversation around the topic of fraternity hazing, and fraternity and sorority hazing, actually, and just trying to encourage universities to be safer about their Greek life practices. We're not here with Hazing You to get rid of Greek life. A lot of people on our team, in our cast, were in fraternities and sororities to different degrees. And, some people had organizations where no hazing happened. Some people had organizations where it did happen. And so we were all lucky to be in the same room together. But really, we were there to talk about, or rather, show the image of what happens to people that might not know, or remind people, unfortunately, of trauma that they might have experienced. And, our hope is that this show encourages the conversation of increasing safety practices at different schools and universities around the country. Well, we did do an off-Broadway run at the AMT Theater on 49th between 8th and 9th, which went very well. Shout out to Tom and Michael Dangora for helping us out with that. It was well received. People really enjoyed the content and left thinking hard about what to do. And we're hoping that this show gets picked up by schools and universities. We've had a high school approach us saying that they wanted to do it because they have kind of a hazing problem in their community. It's an all boys school somewhere in the New York area. And going off Broadway, again, I'll go back to my main point, didn't happen because someone said no. And I was just like, okay. Zach, who came on as also a producer, in addition to writing the show, in addition to being in the show as one of the characters, we really asked all the questions, heard no's, kept going, pulled our family together, Hazing You family, from when we did it in the festival in early 2020. It was January of 2020. The goal was off Broadway in 2020, but we all know what happened then. So kudos to our wonderful and beautiful director, Stephen Cutts, who brought us a lot of great resources and forethought and just artistry to this very dark story, and his associate David Robert Moore. The two of them, power team, really got our guys and our cast to tap into some deeper places to create the characters that they had. And to our stage management team, that's where we found and met Alana, who I mentioned earlier, who is now my executive assistant, who is also part of Latio, and she helps with DMH. Like, it's just all connected. But that happened this year. Part of another reason why I was so silent and not posting any episodes. I was a little busy producing an off-Broadway play. So I made my off-Broadway producer debut, as did Zach. Stephen made his off-Broadway director debut. It's been wonderful. So a lot of firsts with that. But again, keeps in line with the mission of lifting up underrepresented voices. Our cast was multicultural. Our director is African-American and queer. Like, we tried to bring it all together. Our entire stage management team is female identifying, and it was great. Also continuing to build that community. So other things that have happened, there's an event that Latido does every year, and it finally came back in person this June. It was originally called Man of the District, and it's connected to the Miss District of Columbia Scholarship Organization that connects to the Miss America organization. And I always giggle when I say Miss District of Columbia Scholarship Organization, because it makes me think of that moment in Miss Congeniality, for everybody that knows it, where Sandra Bullock as Gracie Lou Freebush says something like, oh, I'm part of this pageant, and Candice Bergen says scholarship organization. And but it truly is. We can get into that in another podcast one day when I talk about how I produce for the Miss America, Miss DC organization. But Mr. DC, as it's now called, is essentially exactly what it sounds like. It is a man pageant, man competition of male identifying people that do exactly what the women do that run for Miss DC, to help raise money. It's all a charitable event, raising money for each woman's goal that they have to raise for when they run for Miss DC. So that came back in person under now the DMH Mendoza banner, because it's starting to grow as well. Coming back in person has been both a curse and a blessing across the board. Coming back in person meant a lot of work again after years of no work. So the curse there is just like being tired all the time. But the blessing is we're working again, making changes and reinventing things. And so speaking of that, all of these opportunities in the last year have led to some pretty awesome firsts as well. Obviously, the off-Broadway debut, but I've interviewed a few people from this project in the past, hopefully a couple more in the season. The end of season 1, I believe, was Angelo Santos, who was a producer on a small independent film called The Girl Who Left Home, which I was also an associate producer on and was in the movie. But after 7 long years of workshops and filming and festivals and getting the word out there and screenings and even cabaret concerts to help raise funds, The Girl Who Left Home is now on streaming. So it's a very proud moment. It's available to rent or to buy on many platforms, but I will name the big ones: Apple Plus, Amazon Prime, Google Play. Check it out. The Girl Who Left Home is the first Filipino feature musical movie, and there are songs. And if you're familiar with Malcolm in the Middle, one of our stars is Emmy Colagado, who was on Malcolm in the Middle as, forgive me, but one of the brothers' girlfriends. And our other star is the one and only Paolo Montalban, who is Prince Charming from the Brandy Whitney Cinderella, also Filipino. And then our star, our leading lady, we used to say up and coming, but she's known, Haven Everly, is, oh my God, there's so many words to describe how incredible she is. Check her out. She is our star in The Girl Who Left Home. She is the girl who left home. She's a singer. She is an actor. She's a social media influencer, a content creator. Like, oh my, what doesn't she do? So she is also a former guest on Producing While Asian. So listen to that episode and learn about how she produces her content. But Haven, Emmy, Paolo are stars, but also plenty of other amazingly talented people in that movie. Laura Nicolas Olaes, who is my creative producer for Latino New York. She's in that movie as the best friend. And Liz Casasola, who plays the quirky aunt in that movie. She's one of the co-founders of Broadway Barcada. Broadway Barcada was another episode in Producing While Asian. It was our first group conversation with her, Liz Casasola, Brian Jose, and Billy Bustamante, talking about their creation of Broadway Barcada in New York City, one of the Filipino artistic collectives that came out of a small Broadway cast and is now over 100 members strong, yours truly included. See our movie. It's heartwarming. It's, you know, the immigrant story. If you're not Filipino, you will still connect with it. If you've disappointed your parents, you will connect with it. It is such a great film. All goes back to our writer, director, producer, Mallory Ortega. It came out of her mind and her heart, this movie. So do check it out on streaming.
We are excited to announce that we are joining the Press Play Podcast Network. The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC.
So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania.
So join us as we explore DC's multiverse.
Look for Krypton Report on all social media platforms.
So the biggest reason why I've been away from Producing While Asian, and I'm sure you're thinking like there's more, like that's not it. It's a very, very big first for me. So if you're just joining us again, this is Producing While Asian. I'm Don Mike Mendoza, the founder and creator of this podcast and the accompanying blog at producingwhileasian.com. Just to throw it in again, you can follow me personally at Don Mike Mendoza. The biggest reason why I've kind of been away, and I've been kind of trying to restart the podcast, but you know, good things, all good things, opportunities keep coming up, is that I am making my Broadway producer debut this year. And that couldn't have happened without support from so many people. But there is the first Filipino story happening on Broadway this summer. It is called Here Lies Love. It is a disco pop musical written by David Byrne and Fatboy Slim and directed by Alex Timbers. He also directed Moulin Rouge on Broadway. And it is the story of Imelda Marcos. If you do not know who she is, Google her. But she is a former first lady of the Philippines. And she and her husband, Ferdinand Marcos, were the kind of couple, very sought after, attractive young power couple who came to power in the Philippines, became the president and first lady, and then fell from grace as they kind of were taken over by greed and became consumed by the power that they had as the president and first lady. And so, but it's more specifically about Imelda's story and how she went from rags to riches and became fabulous and then became the most hated woman in the country. And you know, she's still alive today. She's kicking in her 90s, but it's her story. And it's a cautionary tale about democracies and how fragile they are and how it's, you know, by a flip of a switch almost, that it can switch from democracy to martial law. All that being said, It is a, like I said, disco pop musical. The music is to die for because it's Fatboy Slim and David Byrne. His last show on Broadway was American Utopia. He wrote music for Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Oscar-winning movie in the 2022 season. And it is a watershed moment for our community. It, like I said, is the first Filipino story to be told on Broadway. So with that, and by we, I mean our lead producers. On our lead producing team, there are 5 of them, 2 of which are the first lead Filipino producers on Broadway, Clint Ramos and Jose Antonio Vargas. And then we've got one of very few female identifying lead producers on Broadway, Diana DeMena, who are all working together with Hal Luftig and Patrick Catullo to bring this story forward. So we've got that. We've got a majority Filipino co-producing cohort, which is where I come in. Our main job was to help raise the capitalization, but now we are involved in, cultural outreach, community nights, spreading the word about tickets, which the show is currently in previews. We open on July 20th, which is in 14 days from the day that I am recording this podcast. It's been incredible to be on a producing team where, how I mentioned earlier, a seat at the table. We have many seats at the table, and it is a celebration every time we talk and get together. Even when we have issues that we deal with, we all know and are on the same wavelength, and it's been just an honor to be part of that. And so not only that, we've got an all-Filipino cast, truly all Filipino, telling a Filipino story, which is so awesome to see in a Broadway theater. I was sitting in a tech rehearsal a few weeks ago, and they were rehearsing the song. It's called Child of the Philippines, and it's sung by Conrad Ricamora. For the fans out there, Conrad is one of the stars from How to Get Away with Murder. He was in the movie Fire Island on Hulu. All around amazing person and lovely, lovely human. His first song in the show, Child of the Philippines. I looked around during this number, and there are LED screens all over the theater, and there are Philippine flags all over, and something I've never seen in the theater before in my entire life. And I started crying because it was so overwhelming and such a joyful moment to feel that my culture was represented in a space that is traditionally white, created by white people, not meant to lift up our community at all, that we are now in control of this space, presenting our story with our people. And that goes beyond the cast too. We have Filipino production crew, Filipino creatives. It's a celebration every time. But Here Lies Love opens July 20th. It is my Broadway producer debut, along with many other people on our team, a lot of Broadway performer debuts, and the story of Imelda Marcos. And when I say it's an immersive disco pop musical, the show happens all around you. Visit www.herelieslovebroadway.com to read more about what that means. And let's just say there's a big disco ball, and if you will have floor tickets, you will be in the show. Things will happen all around you. And even if you're not on the floor, you can sit in courtside gallery seats or the mezzanine front and back, and the performances come to you. So it's truly immersive. We did a thing, and it's at the Broadway Theater in New York at 53rd and Broadway, where we removed the entire orchestra section and created a dance floor, hence the floor tickets. And it stretches from the back of the orchestra section all the way to the back of the actual stage. So you can be partying underneath the proscenium of the stage space in this disco pop musical. So I hope that gets you excited for it. It's just amazing. And, we've got plenty of incredible people involved. The Filipino Broadway legend, Lea Salonga, is in the cast. And we've also got an incredible leading team with Jose Lana from 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee and many, many other things as our Ferdinand Marcos, Imelda's husband. We've got, as I said, Conrad Ricamora, who's playing Ninoy Aquino, who is the kind of I don't want to say rival, but like the other side to the Ferdinand Marcos argument. So like it's a political show. So Aquino is liberal, Marcos is conservative. They're the two sides of the aisle. Lea Salonga, I didn't mention, she plays Aurora Aquino, the mother of Ninoy. For those familiar with the story, you know what happens to Ninoy. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone that doesn't know. And then, of course, we have our beautiful lead, Ariel Jacobs, who was Jasmine in Aladdin on Broadway, and she's now our Imelda. And our alternate Imelda is JG Makapugai, who was just in Shucked in the last season, is now part of our show. But Ariel brings so much to, and I don't want to say character, but the personality that is Imelda, because she's with us and is a real person. So don't miss that. Those four incredible people, also supported by Melody Boutiu, who plays Estrella, Imelda's best friend, and then our lovely cast. It is an exciting time. It's upbeat. It's a dance party. So many technological firsts, a 360-degree sound system, along with a dance floor. It is out of this world. And for those people that are like, oh my God, show is so long, sounds long. It's not. It is 90 minutes, no intermission all the way through. So it is a part T. So check it out. Again, www.herelieslovebroadway.com. So all that being said, that's where I've been, folks. I've been trying to get my company together in 7 places. I've been bringing back events that went virtual for the pandemic and bringing them back in person, as well as making an off-Broadway debut, producing my first off-Broadway play, and then supporting our little film that could, The Girl Who Left Home, that is now on streaming to rent or buy, and then finally culminating in my Broadway producer debut when I joined the team of Here Lies Love to get that Filipino story onto the Broadway stage. And I do have to thank Laura Nicolas Elias for connecting me with Clint Ramos to get me onto that team. And Clint has become my unintended, but now is Broadway producer mentor. So thank you, Clint, for all the opportunities that you're pushing my way and all the advice and all the encouragement that you've brought, not just to me, but also to Laura as my co-producer, to help us do our job and to get us involved and be part of Broadway history. And so all that being said, thank you again to the people that have listened. If you've listened to this whole podcast of me just like rambling on about my life, like, thank you. I'm so glad you've stuck around, have been here for the whole almost hour. And that's why I love you. Thank you for supporting and encouraging, and just, you know, the public comments too that come in on our social media and through email are just beyond. Those mean the world. And so I want you all to look forward to this new season, season 3, and it's going to be AA and HPI along with allies and friends of the community talking about so many things. I promise I will bring Here Lies Love guests onto the show to talk about their experiences, and bring some more people from The Girl Who Left Home, as well as Hazing You, to talk about off-Broadway and film, and also some of my Latido staff and associates to come on and talk about their experiences. Juliana actually has her own episode when I brought her on when she was still a student to talk about being an up-and-coming person in the arts community. So yeah, keep in touch. Like I said, for this podcast, it's www.producingwhileasian.com. For Latido, it's www.latidoproductions.com. If you want to know about all the projects, www.dmhmproductions.com. And if you just want to follow me and interact with me on social media, I'm the most active on Instagram, and it's at Don Mike Mendoza. So thank you for being here. I'm excited to bring you season 3, and have a great day. And I hope to see you on the dance floor at Here Lies Love. So with that, I'm out, and I hope you tune into the next episode. Have a great one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Producing While Asian podcast. Our theme song was created by Luckstock. We're produced by Press Play Podcasts, and the show is edited by Michael Santos Sandoval. If you have a moment, please leave a rating and a review, and send any ideas you have to producingwhileasian@gmail.com. To follow us, stay updated, or to read our blog, visit www.producingwhileasian.com.